Good day, everybody, and welcome to the introductory video to the LemanRuss Reality Project. Quick disclaimer, I am not a Warhammer 40,000 fan. I've just recently been introduced to the fantasy universe. I am, however, a tank fan, and the Warhammer universe just happens to have quite a few very cool tanks. So, to start off, the LemanRuss Reality Project is my dream to build small to medium scale LemanRuss tanks that will house a single person being the driver and the operator of the entire vehicle. And if things go well enough, I may attempt to build a full scale version in the future, but that is a very unlikely scenario. So the basic functionality of my first build or my prototype will be more or less a full electric, um, a full electric medium scale LemanRuss tank. It'll have the front side of this style of LemanRuss tank, which is, if I recall, the older style of the tank, and have the rear of this version, simply because it's a material saving measure, because the rear end of this tank is significantly larger, significantly bulkier, whereas this one is significantly smaller. The entire vehicle will run on electricity, as I said, probably a small electric generator in the rear of the tank. The running gear will be electric as well, in all likelihood an electric motor hooked onto a few bike chains running the main sprocket. The running wheels will be solid rubber wheels, I'd imagine, considering the fact that the LemanRuss doesn't have very much clearance on the bottom. I'd imagine inflated tires would give it a little too much spring and would end up tearing up the very bottoms of the paneling. The main body itself will be made from plywood in all likelihood, whereas the frame itself will be a 2x2 pipe steel. Let's see what else. Main weaponry, I haven't decided yet whether which turret style to use or which main weapon to use as my first prototype. We'll have to see further on what I decide to use there. Um, the idler wheel or the tensioner wheel, I'm not sure whether or how to best go about designing that. Whereas on the actual LemanRuss tank here, in the fantasy universe, it runs on just a big bolt and nut here that you tension to push the wheel forward to tension the tracks. Whereas I'm not sure I could necessarily do that. I'd have to weld a hinge onto a plate inside the inner half, I'd imagine, and then have this it'd be like a door hinge, and you'd push it out, and it would have to line up there. But at the same time, I'd have to get everything perfect for that on both sides, which would be quite difficult. So I'm exploring ways to fix that issue. I would imagine the tracks will be made out of plate steel welded together, welded and cut. Whereas I'm not sure. I'd like to get, if it'll focus here, I'd like to get the tracks as accurate to the models as possible. I'm not sure whether or not in the fantasy universe these very small little, like, what are they called? Just these small structures on the very edges of the tracks. I'm not exactly sure what material those are. I'd imagine the larger squares in the middle are rubber. So I'd end up probably bolting the rubber pads to the middle. As for the operation of the actual weapons themselves, I'm not exactly sure how I'd get those to work. I'd imagine for the larger cannons, they would be, in all likelihood, slingshots, makeshift slingshots inside the barrel, whereas things like this, the minigun, I'd imagine I'd probably have to tear apart an airsoft minigun and assemble it inside the turret. I'd like to have I'd like to have the larger cannons like the Vanquisher cannon and this Conqueror cannon to have some basic recoil. So I'd imagine I'd have to place uh, probably a battery in these back compartments, and then have probably a solenoid or something inside the barrel here, and a small switch at like the very end where the slingshot sled. If the slingshot sled hits the switch, it pulls it back real quick. That's just a concept, but I'm not sure how that would work. As you can see with these two turrets are fairly different. I'd imagine for most of my builds, if this project gets off the ground, will be based on this turret style, simply because the hatch is in the middle. I guess I could really retrofit this one and put the hatch in the middle. It couldn't be that hard. But let's see what else. Um, I'd like to take the steel. You know, you're probably concerned about safety. This seems like a fairly dangerous piece of equipment. I'd like to take the steel pipe framework of the vehicle and turn it also into a makeshift fire suppression system with a pressurized tank of CO2, probably housed in the back of the vehicle, hooked into the steel pipe frame of the vehicle with small holes drilled throughout the vehicle, and then on the press of a button, it releases the CO2 into the tank, putting out any fires that may happen. Um, that's really all I can think of to talk about in this introductory video. Keep tuned on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Xaphan, XAPHAN6669, for any further update videos, builds, just status updates on the project and how it goes. And until then, I'll see you guys next time.